watching Leafs Morning Take with host Nick Alberga and former NHLer Jay Rosehill. The show starts now.
My goodness, are the boys buzzing right now or what? 6 straight victories for the Maple Leafs, 10 of 12. It's the Friday edition of Leafs Morning Take. Nick Alberga and Jay Rosehill, who is back from Cancun. A bit of a tan there, I see, too. Great to see.
Yeah, the sun's free down there. It's might as well sit in there a little bit. But yeah, man, the boys are buzzing right now. I mean, this is what it looks like. Don't get too high, don't get too low, but this is what Daddy likes.
I forgot what it feels like after the Leafs just fucking pound a team. Never mind the reigning defending Stanley Cup champions. It hits differently, especially on a Friday. We're feeling great about life. You're feeling better, which is great to see. I know we had created an over-under last week on drinks. I think we set it at like 45.5. Were you the over or the under over the 1 week span in Mexico?
Oh, I was probably under. I was feeling pretty gross there and was not on the sauce. Everything about being down there, the sun, the heat, the food, the drinks, it was all making me worse. So I had to pump the brakes on that. But there's other stuff you can do to keep feeling good and everything else. So yeah, probably didn't hit that 45 benchmark, man. Sorry.
That's unfortunate. Maybe consult Michael Bublé on that front. I'm trying to think back to last year. You went on a trip, man, and you came back and you look like an absolute lobster. It could have been in the summer when we were recording something. You were at the cottage or you're outside for a couple of days and you came back on the screen. I'm like, what happened to you, man? Like, it was like the full sunglass tan. Like, you got that going a bit right now.
Yeah, I know. I'm not purposely tanning. I'm just out there doing water slides with kids and stuff like that. So, yeah, I don't know. I remember being at the cabin there. We had a couple cool interviews and some big news come through the summer that we had to jump on for. That could have done it too out in BC on the shoe swap. It's it's God's country out there in the summertime. So that would make the most sense.
So, Rosie, got a couple of videos for you to break down before we get into last night's 7-3 beatdown in Vegas. Number one, everybody wants Chris Tanev in this market. How about Brandon Tanev? Connor Garland, poor boy, just got the full lawnmower treatment last night.
Well, you had to go. Oh, my God. How do you get out of that? Do you just, he bailed at the end, but I mean, you're getting absolutely fist-fed. Hunched over at the waist, and Garland was all up in his face to start that fight, right? Like, he's all up, just yanking on him. Put his, I think he started, if I'm not mixing up with a different fight, like wanted it bad. It's like, you want a piece of it? I'll break you one off right now. And oh baby, he was starting the lawnmower on that guy, and he's hunched over Garland at the waist, just beating them. Like, pop your head up and try to stop that. Try to stop the consistent uppercuts you're eating. Do something other than what you're doing. And he didn't really get the memo, and holy smokes, Tanev that's one of the more decisive, like, oh boy, that went bad for the guy that I've seen in a little while. Just uppy city.
Those Tanevs are cut from a different cloth. I didn't expect that. Like, I've obviously known Chris Tanev's game for quite a bit of time. Brandon Tanev, I think, has been a really, really good depth, like complementary piece in his day in the NHL. And I think he's been great for Seattle, was great for Pittsburgh, but I didn't know he had that in him. And I know it's Connor Garland. And he hung in there. I think I give him a lot of credit. Some players would have just turtled and called it a day, like Nick Cousins. So,
unprovoked attack. Yeah, it's he was mad. He was pissed off. You could see it in his face. He's just like, you sucker, as he's feeding him every last time. When a guy gets actually mad in a fight and is literally like venting on a guy, it's like, oh, it's kind of another level, and it's fun to watch. So good on him. And yeah, Garland is probably licking his wounds this morning, saying, I might go about that kind of thing a little bit differently next time.
Do you remember a specific fight in the NHL where you were actually like hot under the collar? I think the majority of the time, and maybe you can disagree, like when fights happen, guys are not like pissed off. They just have a job to do. Do you remember a time where you're actually like fucking angry and you had to snap?
I just remember I hit Mark Frazier in the corner when I was with Philly in Toronto, and Orzi just came out of nowhere and just fed me the lumber. And it was so hard and forceful and intentional that it would have made Morgan Riley's cross check look like Tykes hockey, but it caught under my shoulder. Well, you could say it glanced. You could say the initial point of contact was not but it got under here, and then it went into my mouth, and like I was all fat mouthed and bloody a little bit, like not split me open or anything, but it like got me. But I was like, if my shoulder pad wasn't there, you tried to take out my entire front row, man. I was furious. And we were we were tied up by the linesman and they weren't letting us go. And Frazier I think I hurt his knee, bunged up his knee on the ground. And I was like throwing my elbow pads at Orsy. I was so hot under the collar. But usually, it's pretty composed and just part of the biz. But sometimes you get actually pissed. But
So the real truth comes out why Colton Orr won't come on this podcast. It all makes sense now.
Maybe. I don't know, man. Guy doesn't like pods, he says. I don't do
A lot of people don't like pods. That's the response I get from the majority of people we ask. We won't name names. People don't like podcasts. They don't like radio. They don't like podcasts. They don't like TV. Just leave me the fuck alone, kind of thing.
I should keep working Big Dion and get him on. I don't know. He's like right there, but still like, let's just have a beer in a car. And I'm like, or we could do a podcast. How about that? I wonder how he'd be. It'd be fun to pick his brain. I wonder what kind of sound bites you get out of that guy. He's pretty status quo on his interviews, as a player. I wonder if he'd feed you anything good and special. There's a couple things I could bring up that might make him chuckle. We should keep working them.
Yeah, I love how you just threw him under the bus because I didn't name names there, but if you read in between the lines what Rosie just said, there's your answer.
Is what it is, Double Dion.
Yeah, I suppose so. I would just love to ask him about the whole infamous Brian Burke story. That'd be so cool if we had Dion Phaneuf and Brian Burke on the same podcast and we talk about that day. And you always talk about this when he came into the room after they acquired him from Calgary, and then Burke went crazy. He was gushing over him playing the boombox and playing the music and being the DJ in the room, and the media just overplayed it. I'd love Phaneuf's perspective on all that. We barely got it. It was a big moment in history.
Oh, God, it was so dumb. He just mentioned, he comes in, makes himself at home, fits in right away. First thing he does is grab the music box and starts playing some things and getting the guys ready for practice. And the media was just like, oh, yeah, oh, my God, what a leader. I was just like, Jesus, settle down. He put a song on, but he was a big music guy. We actually had the same taste, like some weird alternative 90s shit and stuff. And he'd be like, Rosie, this is like my playlist. And he actually had good tunes. So I was all right when he was, when he had the conch.
When I heard you used to hang out with Dion Phaneuf after hours, not just on the ice, I knew you were a beauty. I've heard some great things about Dion too. So,
have you? Yeah, he goes out and does it. He's a pretty good dude, man. Like he's like he'll go help you. If you're on the side of the road with a flat tire, I think he would go help you. And he rubbed guys the wrong way a lot of the time and kind of picked on guys and tried to get the most out of them in that way, which drove guys crazy. He talked a lot and he had a pretty high pitched voice. So it just got like incessant Dion noise, drove guys a little bit crazy. But at the end of the day, man, he was, I thought he was good to me. He was a positive guy. He'd go out of his way to help you, I believe. So, I mean, that says a lot right there. I don't have a lot of bad things to say about Dion because people, especially from Calgary, come up and go, what was that asshole like? And I was like, easy. He's just fine, man. He's a very unique personality, very big personality, but not a bad guy.
So speaking of bad guys or not bad guys, you remember our boy Cletus last year in Dallas, the fan fight?
I do.
So we pulled apart another really good fan fight, the Devils and Rangers, where the Rangers just handed it to their rivals, the New Jersey Devils. But we had another fan fight take place. Just watch closely. I want you to break it down.
Oh, boys. Oh, another guys are coming in. They're in the face, railings between them. Oh, this guy, the second buddy comes in, meaning business. I haven't seen this. Oh, no, a headbutt? Oh, that's so cheap, man. Face to face. That's why you don't get face to face. You don't have some maniacs gonna headbutt you. Do you know how easy it is to just crunch your nose with a head? Like just shatter your nose. You'll never breathe the same. You'll snore forever now. Like just brutal headbutt. I'm not for it. If you want to give a guy a little warning that we're going, it's all good. But the phantom headbutt's a little bit grease, is it not? That's Jersey, baby.
Yeah, I was watching your podcast. What's it called again? What's it called?
The Department of Discipline.
Yes, I always want to say player safety, the Department of Discipline, and you were talking about the backstroke punch or whatever it's called.
Yeah, you see that?
You hate that, but I think it's the dirtiest move. If you're gonna scrap and you're drunk, and I think it's stupid to fight over a fucking professional hockey team or sports. There are bigger things in life than a fucking game on a Thursday night in like late February, but that's beside the point. If you're gonna scrap, just throw punches. Like this headbutt shit's bullshit because the guy wasn't expecting that, you know?
It's a cheap shot, no doubt about it. Yeah, I don't know what to get to the so hot under the collar where you're in like a public place with security and everything, and you're gonna start physically scrapping another grown man. Like, how could that be anything but just a terrible, terrible choice? But boys get those beers in them at those places, and things start to look a little more inviting to cross certain lines and act like an idiot. I've seen it quite a few times. I was actually at that game that's like legendary now, where that streaker was buck naked up on the Flames glass and was going to run across the ice naked, and he fell and conked his head on the ice and was just out cold on the ice, buck naked, face up. Me and my brother were there just yelling, "Are we seeing things?" And we're just like, "That's weird. What a little blip on the radar." But they show it like forever and ever and ever. That was like 15, 20 years ago now.
Really is infamous. Speaking of infamous, jacked up for today's guest. We got Coach Q. Joe Quenneville's coming up in about 20 here.
I love it, man. He's like my guy. Like the way everyone that's played for this guy, it's just like he's just that perfect blend of like you respect him, you don't run over him, you are not the boss he is, but he cares deeply for his players and is fair and honest. And fuck, what a track record with the Blackhawks. So excited to interview him. He's kind of always been the guy. Him and Paul Maurice, like for a long time, even back when I was playing, I was like, God, I'd like to play for one of those guys. They just seem like they're a guy that you'd want to go through a wall for. And I don't imagine he'll be on the shelf for too much longer if he wants to get back to coaching in the National League.
Yeah, it was fun. I was exchanging texts with Q last night, and the best thing that stood out for me was the fact that he called Austin Matthews one of his favorite players that he's never coached. So I
Cool.
can't wait to get his opinion on 52 tucks in 55 games. The guy's on a different planet. He scores every night. It's absolutely bonkers. At the Leafs Nation 401, where you can subscribe on YouTube, at the Leafs Nation 401. Once again, smash that like button, smash that subscribe button. Leafs Morning Take, wherever you find your podcast. Make sure to keep and give us a 5-star review. Leave us a review as well. That'd be fantastic. Brought to you by DoorDash. It's time for the appetizer. For a limited time, our listeners can get 25% off, up to $10 in value, and 0 delivery fees in their first order of $15 or more. When you download the DoorDash app, enter code NATION25. That's code NATION25. All in uppercase, 25% off your first order with DoorDash. Offer valid in Canada. Subject to change. Terms apply. So 6 straight victories, 10 of 12. They're 21-5-2 versus the Western Conference. What a dominating performance. I know there was a ticket glitch last night at T-Mobile Arena where the fans couldn't get in the building on time. And if you missed that start, you were in for a pleasant surprise if you got in there with, say, like 5 minutes remaining in the first period. It was 4 Cobb Leafs after 1. What a start, man.
Yeah, they just peppered them, dude. Like, and this is what I'm talking about. Like, we talked about this being the big test, and again on Saturday there against Colorado, like the big boys. You're not playing Anaheim anymore, but don't do anything differently. And you're in control. Don't worry about what they do. Don't change your shit. Just put the blinders on. Everyone on the same page. Focus up. We got work to do again tonight. We know what it feels like. We have to put the hammer down as soon as puck drop starts, and that's exactly what they do. And it's just like, the secondary scoring, I was just like, what did they just like take confetti and just wing it across the dressing room? Wherever it lands on, that guy gets goals and points tonight. Like, it was just like who is like spread across the whole thing, which is great. You don't want to rely on your core for 24/7. You don't want to have Austin Matthews score 4 goals in order for you to have a chance at winning, and that is not the case right now. Although he is scoring a lot and helping them, blow teams out and have very convincing wins and 60-minute efforts, which is just stuff we haven't seen out of this group in quite a long time. And it is certainly encouraging, but needs to continue. And, that was a big step against the Vegas Golden Knights. I know they were depleted and they didn't have their hottest lineup dressed, but nonetheless, you go in there and you put on that kind of a performance. That was a well-rounded hockey game front to back.
Here's the answer to your trivia question. Matthew Nyes was the only forward without a point in that game. Dude, the fourth line went to Pound Town last night. Like they did what Vegas has done so successfully since they came into this league. Ryan Reeves in that line, Holmberg, David Kampf. They accounted for 2 goals. Holmberg even set up Austin Matthews for number 52. Like, we talk about this team coming in waves, coming in droves. And that was like a prime example of a game where every line brought something different to the table, and they just were relentless. And I know there's some blips in that game, the start of the second period, the start of the third period, but all things considered, it was finito after the first period. I was so impressed, man. We've been waiting for that all season long where they come in droves and waves, and I saw it last night.
Yeah, exactly. Every line is buzzing, doing something. They have a role. Like before, the first half of the season, they were doing fine or whatever, but it was just like there's so many holes. And if you just kind of open up that door a little bit more to some of the gaps in your lineup and your roster and your character and your style of play, like it just gets so exposed. And you're just like, how are you supposed to win with these clear holes in your game? And it just became frustrating. It's like, yeah, maybe they snuck one out against Buffalo because Mitch had 3 assists. Okay, but it's just not convincing, right? And this hockey that they're playing, while I get it, it's just a 6-game heater, and everybody kind of goes on those, the decent teams, anyways. But it's the way they're winning. It's top to bottom. It's waves. Exactly what you say. You don't have to have Austin Matthews and Mitch on the ice for 25 minutes in a game because you just come at them with your next line. You just come at them with your next line. And like, that's what good hockey looks like when you're overwhelming the other team. It's not just your star players are opening up seams and creating scoring chances every single second. Like, you're getting the puck deep, you're wearing them down, you're making their defensemen turn and go get the puck with pressure. You're taking away the walls so they don't have options. The more they panic, the more you take away the outside, the more you wedge them to one side of the ice, the more they're going to have to go through the middle. That's going to cause turnovers. You just come at them, and then you get the fourth line out there and they fucking bang and crash the defenseman, hit everything that moves, knocking pucks out of air, just dumping it deep again. And D-men are like, get me the fuck off the ice, man. Like, line change. And then you get, Nylander's line out there. And then and everyone's buzzing, man. And everyone's going. And you got all that talent. It's just like, if your defensemen are just moving the puck up and keeping it out and your goalie's having a decent night, you will do that with that attitude. And it just looked awesome, man. I was very happy to see it. It's what we've been begging for the whole season. And it's nice that we know now that they can put that together. They can have that depth throughout their lineup and get the stuff out of their secondary type players. And it's starting to look like this is a team that could do good things in the playoffs, where before there was a whole lot of question marks. So I hope they're imprinting this into their DNA right now, because it looks fantastic.
Man, everybody's lucky this camera only goes to my mustache on my shirt here, because I'm still rock hard. Like, the depth scoring, like you mentioned it off the top, that's a big story for me. Max Domi was great. David Kampf was great. Holmberg, McCabe kicks off the scoring. When you can take some of the pressure and the stress off Austin Matthews scoring every fucking goal for you, I think you're feeling great about. Like, he still scores in that game, but like, to me, that's the bigger story, is that I come out of that game and I'm like, you know what? Core 4 was fine, but they still scored 7 goals. Like, when the Leafs are providing depth scoring like that, they are a hard team to beat, and that's why we've seen them win a lot of games lately. Although, again, it's been McMahon a lot, it's been Nylander a lot, it's been Matthews a lot, but it was a different story on Thursday night.
Yeah, I haven't had the chance to go crunch the ice time numbers, but I think I mentioned it yesterday. But I think that could maybe give Sheldon Keefe the confidence to spread that out a little bit. The more, just because they're the best quote unquote players on the team, sure, they're going to play the most minutes, but like, where's that line? And I'd like to ask Quenneville that as well. Like, the more time you put Mitch out there, like absorbent amount of time, is that too much time? Like, he needs his X amount of scoring chances or opportunities to feed that puck into a scoring position and make his plays. And then anything more than that, like, is he going to be tired? Is that where the kind of brain dead mistakes come from? Is that where the lackadaisical effort comes from? Like, he's just gassed? Is that where some of those brain dead, low percentage, high risk plays come from? Is he just gassed, playing too much? You start to be able to facilitate some of that ice time towards some of the other players out there who are very capable, as have been shown here during this run. All of a sudden, you can back off those guys a little bit and be like, let's just put you out there when you've got your best stuff. We don't have to rely on you that hard. And you'll give us, 100% of what you got, rather than 85% of, stretch that out over so many more minutes. I like to go crunch the numbers and see if that's happening, but it's just nice to see it get spread out, spread the wealth, and just looks like a team like with a lot less holes in it, really.
Well-oiled machine is the way I would phrase it for this Leafs team the last little while. Again, 6 straight victories. Who would have thought, changing lines again, because we've been talking about this ad nauseum the last couple of years, but I really, really like what I've been seeing from that Bertuzzi, Domi, Nylander trifecta. And then you have John Tavares, who scores again, back-to-back games. Like, what a story. Goes 28 without a 5-on-5 goal, then scores in back-to-back games. So that's a pleasant development. everybody's just playing well. Like, we haven't seen the entire team come together the way it has in the last 6 games. And we sort of scoffed and joked at the beginning of the whole Morgan Riley thing. Could they use that as a galvanizing moment? Well, Rosie, sit here, 6 wins later in 6 games.
Yeah, I mean, either it's a coincidence or it did do just that. Why some of these guys have stepped up the way they have. Maybe they felt they needed to with, it started off not just without Morgan Riley, it was without Johnny T and Mitch too. And it
Yeah.
was like, this is going to be a tough one to get two on the board. And they went out there and, and they took care of St. Louis pretty well to start this whole thing off. And whatever the mentality is, man, guys deciding like, I need to help out, I need to pull my weight. We're going to be depleted, like whatever the speeches were and the meetings that Keefe had, like bottle that up and try to get those guys on that page for as long as possible. Cause this stuff ebbs and flows and you kind of lose focus and forget what it felt like to be in this position and to be preparing this way. But I mean, all you can do is just try to, like I said, bottle that up and bring that every single night. But drop of the puck every game for a consistent amount of time now has been like, ooh, are these boys ready to play? And that was not always the case in the first half of the season. It just wasn't. Sometimes it's just like, what the fuck? Were you even planning on playing or trying today? Or did you just think it was just, we were so frustrated for so many games and it was just a different attitude out there. And this one, this seems to be trajecting the way that you want it to. You put the building blocks together, you learn from your mistakes, you grow and you mature as a team. And hopefully going into the playoffs, you're this mature, talented team that knows what they're doing, knows who they are, knows what works and knows what doesn't. And they bring that into the playoffs and are ready to destroy everybody. And, they got a little ways to go before that, no question. But you're just going to talk about what the only thing you can see is that it's going fantastically right now and they're headed in that direction.
Puts everything into perspective, that's for sure. It was great to see Morgan Riley back out there. They get a win with him. That was the best note I can pull from that game, is that they won with Morgan Riley in the lineup too. I could only wonder how he felt watching 5 games and he's like, shit, this team's on a heater without me. So they come back and they deliver that kind of performance, specifically in the first period. I thought was great. 2 more apples for Mitch Marner. I think that's 6 straight games with multi-assist nights. Like, the guy's on fuego. 15 apples in the last 6 for Mitch. Bobby McMahon, it just continues coming in droves for this kid. 1 assist, a 4-game point streak, 4 goals, 7 points. He's got 10 points in the last 6. Like, this is a developing story, but suddenly a team that had no depth like 2 weeks ago. I know there's ups and downs and ebbs and flows of an NHL season, but they're coming at you in waves, and it's just a much different look when there's a supporting cast, right? And throwing everything into the fire too is the fact that we're now 2 weeks right to the day away from the trade deadline. And I wonder how this could impact what they decide to do between now and March 8th.
I think it would give them more confidence to go forward with what they have. I think that was almost the consensus, even when they weren't playing their best. So you look at that and say, there's even more reason to believe that we don't need to go unload assets, unload prospects, unload draft picks to try to get, something changed in this locker room. These guys have proven they know how to do it. I can see it right now. Like they do have the depth. They do have guys that can step up, and they do have the ability to come together and find that chemistry where every line is just switch hitting each other. And I mean, that's what every team is looking for, that all season long, man. And some never find it, and some find it in droves, and some find it in the playoffs. But I mean, they've got it right now. And you can only hope that they're just, holstering that and understanding it and making it part of their routine and their identity, because they look like a really good hockey team in the last couple of weeks.
Was that the last we'll see of Martin Jones? Like, I was wondering that watching that game. Makes 23 saves. He's been a really, really pleasant story for this team since coming up from the American Hockey League. I guess Joseph Woll is not returning this weekend, potentially next week, but I wonder if maybe they hold on to Jones till at least the trade deadline here.
Yeah, I wonder what they'll do with them. I mean, again, whatever it is, you'll, salute them and say thanks for everything. Like, you did fantastic for us, everything we could have asked in the situation that came that we were worried about and concerned about. And you had one of your number 1 goalies go down for a long stretch of time. And both of them, really, he was the number 1 for what seemed like a good chunk of time. And he did absolutely everything you could have asked for him. So, yeah, I mean, if Woll comes back in, and he's good to go, and he's takes the crease or backs up to Sammy or whatever happens. I mean, what do you do with Jones? And what I guess we'll find out what happens at the trade deadline. Like, what is the salary? What are we looking at? Who do we have? Who did we add? Who did we delete? Can he stay here? Should he go down to the Marlies? Do you risk losing him on waivers? Do you package him in some kind of a deal for somebody who might be looking for something? I don't know. But he's done his job here, certainly. And yeah, the time's probably running out, barring any big issue with another goaltender injury. His job is basically done here, and knock on wood, unless more injuries come on. But I mean, you just can't predict that. If he fits in on the roster and he can work, fine. If not, I mean, you got to send him through waivers and cross your fingers.
Yeah, definitely. And again, a lot's to pull from the last little while for this Maple Leafs team. And I think obviously you have to be feeling pretty damn good about life right now, considering the way the team is playing 6 in a row. Everybody's buzzing. Matthews is scoring still at an insane pace. Like every game, it's another goal. It's another goal, up to 52 on the campaign in 55 games. And the 77 goal pace just continues here.
Yeah. What else? What do you think of the fourth lines going on? Like, is Noah Gregor getting kind of pushed out, and like
Yeah, he
Revo's
has.
starting to be effective? Like, I couldn't stand it where you're just standing there uselessly yelling at guys and then going and challenging a guy you would never fight in your life, and they're looking at you like, go sit down. It just sucks when you have that. And a lot of guys got turned into that when the league got so weak. But he's actually out there and banging and crashing, getting in people's faces, and actually disrupting the other team, which that whole fourth line was buzzing that way, and finishing the body. I mean, that is your role. That's your identity. We do not need you to score. We've got very good goal scorers. Thank you. We need you to do X, and we need you to do Y, and we need you to do it well, and we need you to do it safely while keeping the puck out of your net while you're on the ice. And they've been able to do that. And I think that's a big part of the depth and the security that they look like lately, is because they can kind of roll lines a little bit more. And you do get that momentum, and that you put the other team on their heels, you get it deep, you bang and crash, you disrupt the hell out of the other team over there. That's quite valuable, especially, while you're giving Austin Matthews and Mitch and all their guys the quick blow on the bench, and you don't have to roll them out there and double shift them. You can go towards that, and it's just beneficial to the game and to the team. So interesting to see what'll happen there as Yarny gets back and everything else starts happening. Kind of keeping my eye on that.
It's funny they sort of been sparked by this whole change too, right? With Domi and Tavares. And I know guys don't love like naming lines and numbering lines. Like I guess JT's a 3C now. Domi's a 2C. I think important to know yesterday too on the power play. I talked about this the last couple of days, but Tyler Bertuzzi was back on PP1. I wanted to see a significant look. Obviously with Morgan Rielly back in the mix. So like, man, at this point, they have tried every combination possible. And it just, everything.
Yeah, they have. That's why I don't, when you say, is this going to work? Do you like this? I'm just like, I don't know. Like, I don't care. Domi's 2C right now. Fine. That will probably change, and until they get off of this heater, but it's kind of irrelevant to me. I don't care. I don't like numbering them either, except for the fourth line. That needs to be a specific line of guys that have a certain job to do that's quite different than everybody else's. Certainly the first two lines, the top six, but I don't care where these guys play. I've seen them play on so many different lines and so many different combinations that I can't even remember which ones work and which ones don't. And I don't totally agree with mixing it up that bad. But if you got, concrete evidence that this lineup with Domi at 2C, and, if you got John Tavares down to your 3C, I mean, what a luxury to have, right? To have that much depth, to be able to have anyone to even consider playing up on those top two lines is fine with me, man. And I don't think he minds either. If you can get production like as well as Johnny's capable of putting production together on the third line, let him rock and roll, man. Because obviously you must have the first two lines buzzing to make that call.
Definitely. And, as you mentioned too, with Noah Gregor, the whole thing about who's being phased out, a lot can change to now on March 8th too, right? And I think the positive story for this team is that Sheldon Keefe has options, something that has been missing throughout the season. Like even Ryan Reeves, I thought was just excellent. He was excellent when it comes to that game against Vegas. And that's who you need, right? Options at the end of the day.
Yeah, and like playing with David Kampf and Holmberg and these guys that step up and make a difference. And, Kampf is very much a guy who could just make a huge difference in the playoffs, right? he could show up and just buzz. And I mean, maybe that could be Noah Gregor too. I know he's kind of on the back shelf right now, but the way he skates, you could be absolutely just take your shifts out there and absolutely fly around after that puck, hammer everything that moves, just be complete pit bulls on the puck, get that thing towards the net and absolutely crash the net. And if anyone doesn't like it, just get your hands up and start shoving everybody. And then Revo comes in and says, anyone got a problem? I didn't think so. Then you swap out your big boy line for the offensive zone draw and just keep coming at them in waves and waves. It's how it looks. And those guys can be difference makers. And you talk about Bobby McMahon and, a Holmberg, but like Kampf as well could be a big time shutdown guy, a shot blocker, a PK, or all that stuff. So it's just they've got some weaponry. It's just a matter of getting the most out of them. And if this Maple Leafs organization can finally like overachieve their players to play above their heads and above their contracts rather than under, I mean, that's 100% what you need in the playoffs to have success. Every team that goes deep has guys like that step up and say, ooh, he was a big piece of the puzzle that we didn't really rely on or wasn't a guaranteed to happen, and those guys are as valuable as anybody in the playoffs.
What are your thoughts on the weekend? I think the prolific story for me would be Auston Matthews against Nathan MacKinnon, arguably 1-2 right now in terms of the Hart conversation. That's becoming a prevailing story the last little while. Auston Matthews 2 weeks ago, people were like, I'm not entertaining this conversation. And then all he's done since is score and score and score. And obviously, I think he's got to be top 3 at least.
Yeah, for sure. Like those are two big boys. I'm a big fan of Nathan MacKinnon, the way he plays. He's just a horse and a truck, and he's not delicate out there, cute or anything. He's just a big powerhouse and skill to boot. And he's got the pedigree, he's got the cup ring, he knows how it's done. So it'll be interesting for them to face off and see how much snot these Leafs can continue to play with against the Avs. They handled Vegas pretty convincingly, man. That was definitely a test, although they didn't have their best roster, I understand. Another big one here on Saturday. And yeah, the McKinnon-Matthews matchup will definitely be one that you check out. I don't know if they'll be button heads specifically, personally, or physically, but I think at the end of the day, you look at the score sheet and say, who came out ready to play this one? Because Saturday night game, them playing each other with the heater that Toronto's on, it's definitely circled on both their calendars.
Another measuring stick game. So Jan 13th was the last time these two teams played, a 5-3 win for Colorado at Scotiabank Arena. And the Leafs, if you recall, were up 3-0 in that hockey game and sort of took the foot off the pedal, which has been a big story and theme with this team throughout the season. So I'm looking forward to those because I love the measuring stick type games. Like you play Vegas, albeit, as you mentioned, no Mark Stone, no Jack Eichel, among others, not making excuses. The Leafs took care of business. They put their foot down. But how the Leafs match up against the upper echelon teams in the league, I always wonder about that. And Colorado's got superstar after superstar. Goaltending's a bit up and down for that team. And I really want to see like another heat check game, Rosie. We talked about it on Wednesday's show or on Thursday's show leading into the Vegas game, heat check game, and they took care of business. Can they double down and do it again against the Colorado Avalanche primetime Saturday night? I can't wait.
Yeah, how many of these games that they've won that have been part of this run that they're on right now would have been dropped, if this were, I don't know what their worst month was, I don't know, October, November, December, whatever. It would be so easy to drop those games, right? Like sometimes the worst thing the Leafs could ever do is get up 2-3 goals because it's just raw, just you pull right back on the throttle. Oh, what a great start. It's just like you go into the intermission and the other team was just like, are you kidding me? We're gonna respond in the second period with everything. We weren't prepared. I know they got some firepower, but just a pissed off speech happens in the intermission. They're coming out like this, and then out comes the other team, and boom, they're looking around. It's too late. Their wheels are spinning. Everyone's looking at each other. They're confused. They're, what the hell? Oh, and then it's just like you're screaming at the TV. Like that seems like a long lost type of team compared to what we've been watching recently. They get a guy down and they step on their throats. And yeah, there's going to be a little gas for breath like last night where, at the end of the second or whatever it was, or was it third period, it looks like they're starting to make a bit of a push. That's fine. You're playing good hockey teams. It's the NHL and they're going to push back, but it's just like a little gas for life. And then the Leafs just stomp on their throats and it's game over. And they've been doing that consistently. And now, so far against the Golden Knights, I mean, another big performance. It's a big one. It's going to be their biggest test throughout this whole run, is this game here on Saturday night against McKinnon and the Avs. And I mean, if they can do it again against them, it would be safe to say these guys have kind of found something.
It's just wild to me how you even think about where this team was a week and a half ago, and it was like the sky was falling in Toronto. Morgan Riley suspended. They came off just another ugly loss, losing to the Ottawa Senators and losing Riley to where this team is now. It's insane. And obviously you speak better to it. You play in this league, the ups and downs, the ebbs and flows. I know Anthony Stewart always brings up 5-game segments on this show, how long 82 games truly is, where there's just going to be so many ups and so many downs. That's why I love a guy like John Tavares. Nothing phases him either way. He can get a hattie or he can get, a tough night where he's on the ice for 5 goals against. It doesn't phase him. And you need to have that mentality throughout a season, right?
Yeah, that's the maturity and the experience, that a guy like that has. And I mean, if he's going to be your captain, he's going to be the leader, and you need to look at that guy and kind of follow suit. Like, what is John's attitude right now? If things are going well, if things are going poorly, I mean, you could be on this 6-run heater and John's still going to be there the first guy in the morning, and he's stretching, and he's doing his maintenance, and he's doing his physio stuff, and he's getting prepared, and he's putting the work in, and sneaks in an extra workout even though it's not mandatory. All of a sudden the younger guys are just like, okay, this guy's doing things a certain way. Why is that? He's been in the league forever. He is a consummate professional. He is a captain material type player in the National Hockey League. And those guys like him, whether it's going well personally or not, I think they're kind of number one MO, which is why they're wearing the C, is to make sure that they're doing things right and leading the team, properly throughout the ups and downs of a season.
Definitely. Sorry, we're trying to connect here with Joe Quenville. We're having some tech problems. We'll try to figure that out. If we don't do them live, we'll do them in recording. This interview will come out at some point in time today. Just, curious to get his perspective on this Leafs team. This road trip, Rosie, has been incredible. 3 straight wins given, who they played. And this all started way back when, as you referenced, against the St. Louis Blues, missing a ton of guys, not just Morgan Riley, and the buy-in defensively. That's what I wonder about. Is it sustainable? Because again, specifically watching that game here last night, there were moments it got a bit hairy and they ran around a bit. And I think it's quite clear they need at least one defenseman still. But I would love to pick the brain of like a Brad Treliving, see what he's thinking, how he's feeling. And it must be so difficult being a GM because like 2 weeks ago, you wonder if they were like, maybe we shouldn't trade for these guys and these pieces. Now all of a sudden you win 6 in a row and it's like, how can we not help these guys out, right? It changes tenfold.
Yeah, a couple different ways of looking at it in schools of thought. Does that mean you don't have to make changes, or does that mean, oh baby, we're looking as better than we thought? Let's really, go for it this year. But I don't know. I just don't. I just don't like to delete the player. So what are you gonna do? You start playing well as a team now, and you're well rounded, and you got 4 solid lines that are actually rolling and contributing. So you think you're not going to have to delete one of those 1, 2, 3 of those guys to make a big change? Like, they're not all staying. You can't just add. You have to delete pieces as well. So you just found chemistry. You just found the boys figured out how to roll together. The guys have got a new outlook and a new understanding of how this outfit works together and what the formula is. And then you're going to break it up and throw in some randos. Like, I'm not for that. I look at this team and how they're playing right now. I've always said this is probably the team we're going to have to roll with. I don't sell first rounders and Easton Cowan and this and that. Like, no thanks. I'm not interested in unloading the farm right now. If it can't happen with this group, then, that's on them. But imagine adding to this group the way they're playing right now, a Chris Tanev, and a solid guy that's just blocking shots and snapping around and banging bodies and being in position and just being really reliable back there. Like, you add that piece to what they're doing right now, and all of a sudden you can start talking about them being a force.
The Betano wrap-up is presented by Betano.ca. The game starts now, 19 plus. Please play responsibly. Major announcement, Betano is the official partner of Copa America 2024, taking the beautiful game to new heights in the Americas. Join Betano on their journey of passion, unity, and unforgettable football moments. The one thing I will be playing coming up on Saturday, Rosie, is the Nathan McKinnon shot prop. That's been on fuego. This guy shoots the puck like crazy. I'll be playing that, the Austin Matthews shot prop. I'm just in general looking forward to this one. Colorado and the Toronto Maple Leafs, 2 juggernauts going toe-to-toe, and the Maple Leafs red hot on fire, trying to go for 7 in a row here.
Yes, yes. It's kind of the it's kind of the big one on the measuring stick department where they got some good teams coming up and they're playing good hockey. And all right, let's see how good we are and let's see if it's fragile or if it's solid or if it's concrete. And Saturday night will be a big test. So afterwards, I hope we're licking our lips saying we may have found something here, boys, because these guys look legit right now. It's not a little 3-game skid. If they can put their 8th in a row together here or whatever it is against the big boys and clean up on the Avalanche and the Vegas Golden Knights too. It's like, well, what's left to say? They're obviously playing good. They're obviously looking pretty legit. They've obviously found something, and that's a good place to be in Leafs Nation.
Looking forward to it. I know we promised you, Joel Quenville, what we're going to do is get out of this. We're going to record separately and then post it on our YouTube page. So that gives you every more reason. If you're not subscribed to our YouTube page right now, please do so at the Leafs Nation 401. You do not want to miss this interview, right, Rose? You're coming with the heat, no?
We'll see how hard. No, Quenville's like my guy. I've
Yeah.
always respected the hell out of him and wished I could have played for him and excited to interview him. So yeah, it'll be one that we're definitely getting in the can here and then put her out on the internet waves for everybody.
Yep, we're going to do that. So at the Leafs Nation 401, Leafs Morning Take, wherever you find your podcasts, to put out in podcast form. So stay tuned. Have a great weekend. Enjoy the Leafs and the Avalanche, and we'll talk on Monday. Take care, and thank you to producer Vic as well. Make sure to check out more of our content right here on the Leafs Nation YouTube page. We got long form interviews, we got clips, we got epic rants by Jay Rosehill. We simply have it all. And don't forget, you can find out much more at theleafsnation.com. Thanks so much for watching.